Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to another Primal The Awakening unboxing. This is the Feather Expansion. So this is the one of the 3 elemental expansions, including Venom and Ice. You can get to add 2 extra monsters, new weapon cards, armor, all that fun stuff, forges, all that. So it's going to include that. So we're going to go over the weapons are for the 4 core hunters. The ones for the 2 extra expansion characters are in that expansion box, which is why if you're watching these in order, we're doing those afterwards so we can see what all the elements are before we look at their new weapons. We'll look at new armor as well as the equipment. Then we'll go ahead and look at the 2 different new monsters. Then after that, we'll look at some of the campaign stuff, exclusive stuff like the reward cards, but I'll make sure I put a spoiler warning up ahead of time. I'll mention there's a spoiler in case you did not want to see those. So let's jump in and see what we got for the Feather Expansion here. Ding, ding, ding. So like all the other elements make kind of sense. Like rock is hard stuff. Horn is kind of like bone in that. Fire, ice, obviously. Venom is poison. Coral is water. Why am I missing one of them? Lightning. But feather was like the odd one. I was like, what's feather? And my thought is it has to do with either A, speed, speedy things, or B, it's flying things. I think it's kind of a mixture of both, because we do have a very flighty type guy there. But it's also kind of like jungle or tribal themed as well. But yeah, we're going to get all our different cards in there, look at all those. We have some new rules. We're going to look over those in just a sec. We also have our new campaign stuff. So the way the campaign works is if we saw the campaign video I did, it'll have mentioned, like, I think quest 36 was add the Feather Expansion. Yep, 36 here. So then what you do is if you have this set, then you go and you pull out your campaign book, The Path of the Lantern. And you go in there, you find, we're going into Niz Margra, you find quest scenario, and you look up quest number 36 or 38 or whatever you're playing as. And then you do this quest like you would. This is just an extension to the regular campaign book, but it's explicitly for these guys. It's going to have the 4 different quests for each of the monsters. So it's going to have 2 for each of the new monsters, as well as an extra one for Jekaros, which is cool. So we actually get a new one for him as well, which is really fun. Then how the rewards and all that stuff work. So that's all in here. So this should just be kept with your other campaign book. Refer to it as you come across those expansions when you get to those. Then we're also going to have 2 new expeditions for each one. So we're going to have Pazis. So he's kind of like our beast type of this. He's like a peacock raptor. I'm not even sure if that's how you would describe him, but we'll get his 2 expeditions, and then we will get Rajas. I'm never really sure how them J's fit in there. But he is definitely our dragon for this set, but he's like a feathered dragon, kind of like a mixture of like a feathery and kind of like Chinese mythical dragon, kind of cool. And we'll get his 2 different stuff as well. And that's what we have in here. So we're going to look at, before we hop into the weapons, we want to look at a brand new terrain type we're going to get. We're going to get 2 tokens for this. We have some orange bushes here. There's a jungle brush. At the start of your movement phase, if you're in a sector with a Jungle Brush terrain token, you may recycle an aggro card from your hand to hide in the Jungle Brush. If you do place your miniature on the Jungle Brush terrain, your turn pauses and passes to the next player in order. Then name a player who has not yet played this round. That player has completed your turn, leave the Jungle Brush and resume your turn at the movement phase. While your turn is paused, you're not the active player, cannot assist other players or taunt the monster. When you resume your turn, you are once again the active player and out of the way and play as usual. Only one player can hide in the Jungle Brush. So, it's going to work just like the regular brush from the core set, except I think the difference is how you activate it. So like the regular brush is all the same thing, but you may recycle a dodge card. from your hand. So you have to do a green card. This one is going to have you recycling aggro card. So it's going to hit off a little bit more easy to be able to hide in here, but it's not available in every campaign. Other key things we'll look at really quick is we have evasion for Nagajas. It's a trait card, just has no inherent effect, so it's like some of the other ones you've seen, like Claw or Frost and things like that. We have Quick Refresh. A peril card features this keyword. Skip the behavior refresh step during the monster upkeep phase. Perform a behavior refresh step at the end of each player's turn instead. Interesting. So we'll see that when we get it. And then we have Poison Spore cards we're going to get to. We'll look at that when we get to the monster, though, specifically, because that's something specific for him. Alright, we're going to start looking at our weapons. We're going to start with Daron's swords. The Winged Blade. That is definitely a neat-looking blade there. Like kind of like 3 blades glued together. So this has 5, 5, 4, and 6. So a little bit more dodge. Like we did mention, Feather might be kind of like the quick moving or like agility type element, I guess. Like, you know, again, like think Feather, you think like flying or winged. So dodging makes kind of sense with that. You play a card with Slash, deal 1 damage. I love this. I think everyone has at least one card or one weapon now that, maybe 2 at this point, that reference one of their signature keywords. And they do extra stuff. So every time he plays Slash, he gets an extra little winged damage. And it has 3 normal attack. When we upgrade it, we're going to, of course, add a bone to it. Which, why not? That's what we do. I think all the numbers stayed the same. Yep. When you play a card with Slash, deal 2 damage. Start. If the top card of your discard pile has Slash, you may add it to your hand. Ooh, that's fun. So that means if you play it last, then you get add it. You not only do 2 damage, you get to add it back to your hand for the next turn. That's fun. And then the last one we have is level 3, which we're gonna add a bunch of feathers in there. The blade doesn't change too much, but it's gonna become more decorative. When you play a card with Slash, deal 3 damage. If the top card of your discard pile is Slash, you may add it to your hand. Cool. That's definitely neat. For Mira and her great bow, that's a fancy looking bow there. An arrowhead in the middle, or a giant tooth with Air Swan. 5, 6, 3, and 6. So not much parrying, but she's got some good maneuver and dodging. But if you play 2 blue cards, you get to draw a card. Interesting. That's pretty cool. Then her upgraded one. Add some more feathers in there, of course. Some more spikes on the outside. Some more blades. Ooh, her cards do change, though. Look at the... Oh, no, they don't. So it stays the same. It says 3 parries. Really weird. I don't know if it's just the first card element that we've had a card drop below 4. Usually it's 4, 5, or 6. This is 3, so that's interesting. If you play 2 blue, draw a card. Then the card you drew gains stealth until the end of turn. That's awesome. So normally it's just play 2 blue to draw a card, but you level this up. Any card you draw gains stealth? That's awesome. And then the third one, look, now has even more feathers. Not as much on the top, though, just on the bottom, which is kind of weird. Play 2, draw a card. Card you drew gains stealth, and its stamina is reduced by 1. That is awesome. So basically, she can snipe. So, like, Darren with the sword's gonna swing, do extra wing damage. She's gonna be able to, like, send arrows through the air and unnoticed, even better. And she's gonna get more ammo from it. That's awesome. For Thorg, our hammer wielder, we have the Earth Shaker. So it's like an eagle print on this giant stone mallet. 5, 4, 4, and 5. It's a little bit more down the middle, but interesting. Start. If you have 2 cards with Impetus in your hand, Impetus in your hand, draw 1. So that's his signature keyword. So interesting. If you have them, you get an extra card, so you kind of gotta save them up. His upgrading, of course, we already have like a feather on there. Let's just attach a bird skull to the front of it. And accentuate the wings. Actually, like, hey, let's add some more rock to this rock. It's kind of fun. Ooh, and then this does change a little bit. Look at that. His red and green go up to 6, so then he gets a little bit more cards. If you have 2 cards within your hand, draw a card. So nothing changed for his ability. It's still if you have 2 cards, right, you draw 1 card, but he does gain more cards in his deck. Then his third one, we're going to add some ruins to there, add a bunch more feathers. And yeah, then his numbers go up even more, so now he gets even more cards back in his deck. If you play all 4 colors, deal 20 damage. That's pretty cool. That's a neat extra effect, right? Just straight up 20 damage. That can take out a lot of guys very easily, or help at least. Alright, then for Linar, we have Shard. 5/5 and 6/6, so a little bit more on the doggy side. Little bird skull on the top, and a little big bird skull. His sword literally looks like a feather. That's really neat effect. When the monster turns their sector, draw a card. Interesting, because he likes to taunt them, so that makes sense. I like the bottom kind of looks like almost like an egg, too. We're going to add more skulls, because why not? 5/5, 6/6 is in. When another player plays an aggro card in their sequence, you may immediately move without paying any stamina cost. Ooh, so you can try and go over that area quicker. And then when monster turns their sector, draw a card. That's neat. And then the last one, hey, let's add some more feathers and another skull. And plus, color up the blade a little bit. Another player plays an aggro in their sequence, you may immediately move without paying a stamina. And when the monster turns your sector, drop to your hand size limit. Oh, that's neat too. These are really fun effects. I really like them. They're really cool, different ways to play the characters. What's what the armor does, how that's going to work with us. So we're going to start with the Comedic Plate, level 1. Big wing pauldrons. At 6 health. At the end of your action phase, you may search the top 3 cards of your discard pile for a defense, add it to your hand. There's a lot of monsters this would be very good against, because they need you to have green cards for either avoiding their behaviors or for attrition damage. So this could be very helpful to have them just in your hand. I can see this being a useful card. Level 2, upgrade it. And since it's tometic, we're kind of starting to look like a totem, where they got the fancy feathers and stuff, so it's kind of like a totem pole, which is kind of neat. 10 health. At the end of your action phase, you may search your discard for a green card and add it to your hand. Okay, interesting. So, we have, at the end of your action phase, search for 3 cards, add it from your discard, add it to your hand. Let's search the top 3 cards of your discard pile. This just lets you search your discard pile. Okay, so it is definitely better. I misread that. And then the last one, add a skull. We got always add a skull. That's the name of this game, right? 15 health. Start, you may draw unless you are threatened. And at the end of your action phase, you may search your discard pile for a green and add a card. Cool. So yeah, they have a lot of extra drawing in here. And then to go on top of our armor, we're going to get this tribal-looking helmet. The Tometic Helm. When a player in adjacent sector is paying the stamina cost of a card, you may reveal 2 cards of that same color from your hand. If you do, reduce that stamina cost by 1. That's neat. So like they're going to play a red card and they're getting ready to pay. You're like, I have a red card. You can show 2 extra red cards. And then now that costs 1 less, so maybe they don't even have to pay for it. Or it costs 1. That's neat. Neat way to assist your partners. Getting some extra feathers at the bottom. Now he's starting to remind me of the Scooby-Doo Witch Doctor. Alright. 9 health. When another player is paying a stamina cost of a card, you may reveal 2 cards of the same color from your hand. If you do, reduce that stamina cost by 1. What changed on there? Did anything change? Oh, well, an adjacent player to just being any player. Okay, cool. And then the level 3. Add some more feathers everywhere. When another player is paying the stamina cost of a card, you may roll 2 cards of the same color from your hand. If you do, draw 1 and reduce that stamina by 1. So, yeah, hey, you're helping them out. you're also getting an extra card. And you're only revealing them, you're not discarding, so that's pretty cool. For our items, we have Feathered Coat, level 1. When you move, if you are not in the aggro player, you may reveal a green from your hand to ignore the movement cost. That's neat, so you have to reveal it, but then you get a free movement out of it. For level 2, when you move, you may reveal a green to ignore it, so you don't have to be you can still be the aggro player. And then level 3, when you move, reveal a green from your hand to ignore the movement cost. When you trigger a behavior with the front side reaction, you may reveal 2 green from your hand. If you do discard that behavior, instead replenish its behavior slot. Ooh, I don't know if we've seen any other items that have like specifically mentioned a reaction type either. Other than maybe moving. Like, if you move. I think I've seen some of those. That's cool. I like that. Our other item is the Boomerang. At the end of your action phase, if the first and last card in your sequence are green, deal 1 damage for each card in your sequence. Oh, that's interesting. So you could potentially do a lot of damage if you plan it right. Level 2, at the end of your action phase, the first and last card in a sequence are green, deal 2 damage for each card. And then level 3 is it does 3 damage. So that's neat. If you can play a nice long sequence. Even if you can't, like, right, you're trying to play defensive cards, you just make sure you play one first and last. Even if you only have 3 cards out, it does 3 damage, right, per each card. So you do 9 damage with this. 9 damage, even at the level 1, it does 3 damage. 3 extra damage just because is not ever a bad thing. Alright. Next thing we wanted to look at, we did not look at yet. We didn't take a look at the Feather Forges. We have those guys here. I'm going to zoom back out a bit. We have our 4 regular weapons, our items, and our materials on there. We just did all those. You can see they're having bones, greens, and blues. I don't remember what they're all called. A little bit of everything. Yeah, we get those unlocked. We also get our 5 quest cards for those guys. And then we are going to hop into our first monster. So we are going to look at our feathered reptile? Pazis. Pazis? Not really sure. So he has no extra stuff on his board. Look at that. He's like a lizard. Like a raptor almost. Like a spitter raptor type guy. But then he has like these big giant wings instead of arms. Which also makes him look kind of like a peacock. Very interesting. His weaknesses are bone, thunder, and ice. Thunder, that makes sense. If you're a flying thing, you wouldn't probably get more susceptible to getting hit by lightning. Frost, if you have wings and stuff, you're probably not going to like the cold. Bone's kind of interesting. Maybe just because it's a hardened element and he's a little bit more fragile, being like a bird-type lizard. But yeah, look at this. This is a crazy-looking miniature. So he does have claws. You can't really see it as much in the pictures. But they did give him little claws down there. Got some little, like, danglies on himself. But yeah, they're in the back. Oh, yeah, he's otherwise pretty freaking skinny. Like, right? Like, lots of these guys are pretty big, beefy boys. And he's still giant compared to the hunters, but... yeah, it does look like they maybe changed it from the original artwork. The original artwork, he just kind of like hooks on the bottom. And it looks like they changed it to give him actual claws. I'm sure part of that was the stance for the miniature. There's no way they could have them just him bending over that far as it being free floating. So they just gave him actual claws. But I think the claws will look pretty cool. So I'm not going to argue with those. Alright, let's hop into our stances. Let's see what he does. Alright. I'm going to tip this down just a bit. And then we have, for Prologue, level 0, we have Stance 1. At the start of each round, a player suffers an attack unless they reveal a yellow from their hand. Wow. Most level 1 stances don't automatically do damage. That's just 1 damage, but still. I mean, it's fairly avoidable, too, for the most part. Unless you're that one weapon that had 3 yellows. Um, so in stance 2, he has when revealed, shuffle an aerial evasion behavior card into the deck. Into the behavior. Ooh, interesting. Aerial evasion into the behavior deck. What is aerial behavior? I'm trying to see if I can find that. Aerial evasion. Okay. We're gonna put that aside. Because that's gonna have to, we're gonna look at that last because I just right quick has to do with the objective card. So we're gonna set that aside, but we'll make sure we look at that first for when we get to the objectives. Alright, so that's kind of cool. So that's gonna be an interesting, different thing. And then we have stance 3, when revealed, each player suffers an attack unless they reveal a yellow from their hands. It's the same thing, kind of interesting. So he's going to possibly attack you. Then he's going to do something with aerial evasion, which is some sort of dodging thing, obviously. And then he's going to come back and attack you again. Let's see if his other levels stay fairly much the same. Level 1, he has stance 1, same thing. Each player reveals an attack, suffers an attack unless they reveal a yellow. Stance 2, shuffle the aerial evasion into the behavior deck. And stance 3, each player suffers unless they reveal a yellow. So he's going to be, basically the same for all of them. He has very low damage, though. 2s and 3s, not too bad so far. Same thing, level 2, he has the same thing, reveal a yellow. Aerial invasion. And, ooh, this one gets a little bit harder, though. So when revealed, they have to reveal 2 yellows. Ooh, so that's going to hurt. But again, that's by stance 3. It's a little bit later in the game, so you can kind of plan it at least. Like, hey, we know we're about to change them. I better make sure I have some yellow cards in my hand. Like, round 1, there's nothing you can do, right? You draw your hand, and that's what it is. For level 3, the hard it's 18 health or toughness per player plus 4 damage. So he suffers unless they reveal a yellow. This is revealing, not discard. Stance 2, shuffle the aerial invasion behavior in the deck. He gains 1 struggle per player. And then by the time we hit level 3, each player suffers an attack unless they reveal 3 cards of the same color from their hand. So now it doesn't even care what kind they are, but yeah, it's still pretty mean. Awesome. Cool, I like that they changed it up a bit. Alright, so he has, for his peril cards, on stance 1, he has Venom Spitting. At the end of the round, each threatened player takes a paralyzing spore card from their reserve and places it on top of their discard pile. Okay, and then on the opposite side, at the end of the round, each threatened player takes a paralyzing spore from their reserve, places it on top of their discard. So end of round, yep, same thing. Okay, so what's paralyzing spores do? So we have some of these guys. They're going to have their cards on the back, so they get mixed into the deck. 4 for each character. Again, only the core characters have his little symbol on the bottom, just in case they ever release these again for somebody else, you know, whose deck they belong to. Plus, or if you just cards get mixed up, you know, which deck they go with. But yeah, what does Paralyzing Spore do? It says, well, as card is in your hand, you cannot move. At the end of your action phase, discard this card from your hand. So, much like wound cards, they're going to clog up your hand because you're going to have this useless card in there, but it's even worse because now you can't move. Let's see if it says anything extra in the book here. That gave a person reserve, place in the card. Each player has a reserve of 4. Similar to wounds, paralyzing spores clogs up your action deck, making it less efficient. However, unlike wounds, this card prevents you from moving while you have them in your hand. Great. Yeah, so they're going to just clog up your hand, and, you know, then you can't move that turn, which then also means you're going to be threatened. Also, on top of that, which is also interesting, where if you have paralyzing spore at the end of the round, you're threatened because you can't move. You're going to take another paralyzing spore. That's not great. But it's also you can't move. It's not, we've had other cards that say skip your movement phase. If you skip your movement phase, you might still be able to move using other effects. This one's just you can't move if this is in your hand. So that's pretty cool. We're going to get a bunch of those. Alright, for stance 2, we have Paralyzed Prey. permanent. The player becomes threatened, they suffer an attack. And when you have that Paralyzing Spore, they're going to definitely have that. Unleash. The aggro player searches their discard pile for a Paralyzing Spore and places it on top of their deck. Okay, well, that's not too bad of an extra effect. They're going to draw it right away, but it's not the worst. The first part's the bad part. Harder one, they become threatened, they do that. Same thing. Okay. Not too different. And then for the third one, stance, they have Vanish. When it suffers a wound, Pazis flees. See, prevent the escape objective card. If a player prevents it from fleeing, he gains 1 struggle per player -1. Interesting. And then this has quick refresh, which you just saw. I mean, you skip your beginning one, you get to at the end of the turn. When it suffers a wound, he flees. And prevent it from fleeing, he gains 1 per player. Alright, what does this objective do? We keep mentioning this. Prevent the escape, which is a permanent in stance 2. So we saw that in the first one, he tries to do damage. The third stance, he tries to do damage to you. In the middle one, he tried to escape. You had to shuffle that aerial evasion into the deck. When Pazis would flee, players automatically collectively reveal 1 per player blue card from their hand. If they do, the game continues normally. Otherwise, he flees and the players immediately lose the scenario. What? That's crazy. So you hit level 3. If you wound him, every time you wound him, he tries to flee. Every player between all of them have to reveal blue. So if you're playing a 4-player game, between the 4 of you, you have to reveal 4 blue cards. Otherwise, he escapes and loses the game. And then even if he doesn't, he gets a struggle. So he's trying to run away in the middle. And the problem is it's permanent. It's not so like, oh, you get him to level 3, it disappears. So, yes, if like we looked at that even for like level 1, that means you get him down, stance when you get him to 7 health, and then you have to get him down to 4. You still have 7 health to deal with. Like that's most of his health bar, you have to deal with it. Oh, I don't even want to know what the hard side says. Players may collectively reveal 1 per player blue card from their hand. If they do, the game can otherwise he flees. Interesting. So yeah, that's only going to hit when he hits level stance 3, I guess. It happens in stance 2. So stance 3 means when he suffers when he tries to escape. So stance 2 will put this card in, so it's end of the turn. It's going to put 2 copies of this, so we're going to have, I'm going to throw these guys up. So there's the easy one, and here's the hard one. Well, we'll look at the easy one first. So stance 2 will put this card into place. It says right, or not stance 2, we're stance 2. Yeah, so when revealed, each player shuffles area evasion into the behavior deck. So this says when this plays, he flees, and you have to try and prevent it. So he's going to try and do this whenever this card pops up. Won't happen until stance 2, but then he stance 3 every time you wound him, he tries to do it as well. Boost 3, enhancement. Players must collectively reveal an additional blue card when resolving the prevent the escape. Only 1 more, but it's still kind of a pain. Then the harder one, it just has boost 2 instead. Interesting. So I'm going to guess that in his mode it says this does not start in the deck. Yes, special behavior. Leave this card out of the deck. It should be out of play until it interacts with it. So you don't have to deal with it until stance 2, but then now this is going to occasionally come up. And then when you hit stance 3, every time you attack him, he's going to keep trying to flee. So your team is going to have to constantly keep blue cards in their hand. Luckily, it's just revealing them, but, I mean, you can't play them. Because you're going to need them to get rid of this. Oh, that's going to be crazy. It's awesome, though. Yeah, it's a crazy effect, but I love it because it's different. All right, let's look at the rest of his behavior cards. He's going to have, in the red, I still love the artwork on these guys. Sharp Senses. The color flies on Paz's feathers quiver as preparing for an attack. 1 misstep and it will Sink its claws deep into your chest. Ooh. 1 boost, the active player suffers an attack unless they have a yellow in their sequence. So he wants these yellow cards out. The harder one is active player suffers unless they have it, but then it also has a boost enhancement. Active player suffers ×2 damage instead of 1. We're going to get another attack, and this one had 4 for the refresh. Did the other one still have 4? Yeah. I like when they do that, so you can't tell them apart. This is also sharp senses, which is the same as exact abilities. And then the harder one is the same. So he gets double of these, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. He just really wants to do that too. We're getting another attack with a 4. Oh, so you're not going to be able to tell any of these cards apart. We have Enchanting Colors. The active players threaten they suffer an attack unless they reveal 3 cards of the same color from their hand. Again, if they have that Paralyzing Spore, they're going to be threatened. And then the harder one is suffers 3 unless they reveal 3 cards of the same. Each threatened player suffers it. Awesome. Oh, if you're in the flank, I have not seen anything in the flank for quite a while. Most monsters don't deal with that. Or if anyone is in the flank, we have Frenzied Assault. Pazis gains 1 struggle per player. The active player then suffers an attack unless they reveal a green card from their hand. And then the other one is he gains 1 struggle, and each player in the flank sector suffers 1 unless they reveal a green card. If you are triggered, which is going to happen a bunch. Feathered Crown. The active player suffers 3 unless you reveal 3 cards of the same color. Oh, this is going to be tricky. You have to keep cards of the same color in your hand. I desperately want you to just keep all of them blue. The active player must either reveal 3 cards of the same color from their hand or suffer damage plus X, where X is the number of Paralyzing Spore cards in their discard pile. Ooh, that's interesting. If you're in his mouth space in the front sector, he is going to have Dazzling Colors. Gains struggle per player -1. Active player suffers an attack unless you reveal 3 cards of the same color. This guy is not fun. I don't like him. Per player, 1 shell per player. Each player in the front sector suffers it. Yeah, just having to keep, like, just the behavior cards, right, by themselves. Ignore the fleeing part. Ignore the poison spores in general. Having to have 3 cards of the same color to avoid all these attacks is going to be very tricky to do. Then, if you go and you add in that poison spore, which takes up 1 of your hand slots, possibly more if you have more of them, because you can have up to 4, that's going to be even harder to do because you have less cards in your hand. Then you also add that fleeing mechanic, and possibly in 2, more often in 3, stance 3, where you need to have blue cards. That means each player needs to keep at least 1 blue card in their hand at all times. So that means, again, now you're limiting your card hand to what you can do unless you just have a bunch of blue, but then you have a bunch of blue. How do you dodge some of the other things? So that is nuts. He has some reaction abilities here. Some rampages. We have Venomous Fang. The active player must either reveal a blue card from their hand or take a Paralyzing Spore from the reserve, place it on top of their discard. If the reserve is empty, they suffer an attack instead. And then the harder version is the active player must either reveal a blue from their hand or take a Paralyzing Spore. So it's the same thing. Okay, place it on top of their deck. That's the difference. The easier one puts it in their discard pile. This one puts it on top of their deck. Then the last 2 are 2 more reaction cards, which can then get mixed up. So we have one. It's another Venomous Fang. Does the exact same effect on top of their discard pile. But the other one is actually turns into a Venomous Bite. The active player must either discard a blue card from their hand or take Paralyzing Spore on top, place it on top of their deck. So I don't know if there was a mistake here and this was supposed to be called Venomous Bite and they just messed up the name, or what, because it has It does still say reveal, but on top of their deck, and this one says discard, so it's a little bit harder. But that is Pazis, so he is kind of a pain to fight. I am super excited to see the other guy now. Let's take a look at his miniature. Here is our last new monster. So we have Nagajas. Naga meaning like kind of snake or serpent. Just kind of like very serpenty, feathery dragon guy. He has no special like borders on there. He is weak to water, crystal, lightning, and venom. So again, not really sure the water feather aspect. Maybe like if feathers get wet, they don't fly. That could definitely be it. Lightning, obviously a bird doesn't want to get hit by lightning. Crystal is kind of interesting. Like just hardened or white reflecting, I'm not sure. And then Venom, I think, is just because he's kind of got like a more of a, maybe a softer body. He could get poisoned. Not really sure always on that. It always be interesting. I like the developers or designers talk about some of that stuff. Or if they have more lore on each character, like you open up the book and it's like, oh, here's about this guy. Yeah, so here he is. He's on this big giant rock, which is kind of neat. Not the most interesting looking rock, but he's definitely cool. His scales, his underbelly looks pretty cool. He's got these spikes all the way down his back. All the little things hanging off his mouth and stuff are cool. The feathered tail is really neat. There's gotta watch, this is kind of fragile. Just be careful, even when I pulled it out of the box. There's actually a piece that snaps in under here that holds underneath his head and holds this. She's the only kind of very fragile character I've ever seen. Let's look at his stance cards. And let's see what he does. He does not have poison spores like the other guys, so it's kind of nice to double it up again. Now like the Venom expansion did that, they doubled it up. And it's kind of like, sometimes some guys just need their own mechanics. So alright, Nagajas. At 0 for the prologue, has stance when at start of round, advance the round marker by 1. So you're going to start off already speeding up the game. So he's quickness, it was what it seems like. So I said one of the aspects of Feather was probably speed. Stance 2, advance the round marker by 1. And then in stance 3, also advance the round by 1. So he's going to advance it very quick. So yeah, especially the later one, like by the time you get stance 3, if you're not watching out, like he could jump that up to where you don't have a chance to beat him. Interesting. Let's see if I wonder if he plays around with that in any other way. Like, right, this happens if you're at round level this or that. I wonder if we're going to get something like that. Level 1, just all his stats are going to go up. I mean, he's have the exact same thing. Just advance the round marker by 1 each time. There's nothing extra special there. We jump to level 2. Same thing. Advance the round by 1. Just his toughness goes up. His attacks go up. I need to reread those every time. I can hold them there for a sec. Pause if you'd like to read those. Level 3, they sometimes change. At the start of round 1, advanced by 1. He has 18 toughness and 4 attack at this point. 22 toughness and advanced the round marker by 1. And level 3, advance it by 1. So nothing extra special there. He's just going to speed the game up on you. Which, when you only have 10 levels, or 10 rounds, speeding up by 3 is quite a big difference. It's 3 turns you lose. And if you get knocked out, right, and you can't have someone revive you, that means technically now you've lost another 2, right? So that means now you're down to 7, you're down to only playing, 5 turns, that's half the game for 1 knockout. So that could be interesting. Alright, we have permanent and quick refresh. Threatened player cannot play any red cards in their sequence. At all. Oh, threatened players. Oh gosh. I missed the word threatened. I thought it's just like no player could play red cards. I'm like, what? How do you win? I just want to read you a quick brush. When a peril card features this keyword, skip the behavior refresh during the monster upkeep. Perform the behavior refresh at the end of each player's turn instead. So what that does is instead of at the beginning of the rounds, I know the other guy had it once, but I think he's going to have it a lot more, is, yeah, you're going to keep refreshing there. So I just want to look at the rules, see exactly what it says. Look at the behavior cards in play. Discard the behavior card, and the lowest refresh value replaced at the top of the card. No, if more than one has the lowest value, do all of them. So a series of rounds consists of following steps must be resolved in order. So yeah, so consume all the way to the end of the round. Then the next player gets to play. End of the round. So it's at the end of the end of the round is so consume a potion, monster upkeep does their stuff. Then all the players get to do all their stuff. Then the end of the round hits with quick refresh. Those cards are refreshing after each player goes, instead of just once during the turn. So you skip it at the first time, but then after each player goes, they're going to keep refreshing. So these cards are going to cycle a lot faster. And then the harder one, permanent quick refresh and threaten players to not play any offensive cards. Oh boy, that's difficult. Level 2 stance, or stance 2 is permanent. Oh, permanents are a pain. Behavior card enters play if the behavior reaction icons are exactly blue, red, blue, and yellow in any order. The aggro player suffers an attack. Interesting, right? So if their action icons in play are exactly those three, so I just as a quick thing, blue, yellow, green, red, blue, red, yellow. So he has all blue, so he has one green. Otherwise, everything else is a trigger. So he doesn't have fronts, flanks, movement, turning. So, that's going to make this kind of challenging, right? Because that's going to happen unless he has that green in there. It's the only thing that's going to shut that down. Does the exact same thing except they suffer +1. But at least it's only an aggro player, right? So it's not every player, it's just one guy. Then stance 3, he has lightning evasion. When you play a red card in your sequence, discard the top card of the behavior deck. If it has evasion, is considered to be that red card is considered to be blank. Oh boy, I think though blank means it still does its attack. It just doesn't have any of its effect. And no text abilities. So, aim, slash, and Pegasus are not part of the text and still count for an action, even if the card is considered to be blank. So I think it still does, like, its attack, it still does its damage, it just doesn't have any of the effects or traits or combo stuff. The harder side is, discard top card of the behavior deck that has evasion, it is considered to be blank. I think that's the same exact thing, right? Yep, okay, cool. Then we have our objectives. So, permanent from level 1. So at least that's kind of helpful. Away from the river. When a behavior card would cause a round marker to advance. Okay, so his stances do, and now his behavior cards tend to. Okay, players may collectively discard per player half of the aggro cards in their hand in order to prevent it from advancing. Oh boy. I can't wait to see how this works. On the harder side, it is the same thing. So he already speeding up 3 times with his stances. Now his behavior cards can do it as well. Alright, we have some yellows. I'm just curious. Yeah, okay, so they do have different refresh numbers, of course. They have to, but they're going to refresh constantly, right? We have in yellow, we have Dragon Senses. Nagajas gains 1 struggle for each player that has an aggro on top of their discard pile. Hey, look. If we do this to discard our cards, we're going to have them in there. Oh, boy. It's the love-hate of these. I love the mechanics. I love the idea, but now it's the thing about playing it is going to be bad. Gains 1 struggle for each player that has a aggro in their discard pile. Just in general. Doesn't even need to be on the top anymore. For red, we have Blitz Assault. Evasion. The active player suffers an attack unless they reveal a yellow card from their hand. Boost. Enhancement must discard it instead. And then the harder side, which also has evasion on there. Active player and each player in the rear sector suffer an attack unless they reveal it. And then the boost is a must discard instead of revealing. We have some blue reactions. Glittering Eye. The active player must immediately move or become threatened. Okay. It's not bad. Sucks you have to pay for that. Same thing, except now it has that evasion keyword on it. Another blue is we have Dragon Bite. Each player that has aggro on their discard pile, top of their discard pile, suffers an attack. And each player has an aggro on top of their discard suffers an attack +1. Another red. I love these are all colored ones though. That was always my worry about the original. Like when we first heard about it, oh, they're gonna be like, I can't play attacks and defense and do my combos. And a lot of characters, they barely have any colors in them. They have a couple, but it's all this guy is. So it's a really fun, different change. Frenzy Pace. Players in the front row and rear sectors suffer an attack unless you advance the round marker by 1. Okay, so cool. So this is where we're gonna get that. At least it gets preventable in multiple ways, right? Getting struggle per player -1. Players in the front and rear sectors suffer an attack unless you advance the round 1. So either multiple players might have to suffer an attack, or what's the easier side for this? You can discard half your cards. Half the players divided by 2, not half your cards. So if you have 4 players, 2 players have to discard aggro cards. Am I reading that right? I'm pretty sure I'm reading that right. Because it's half. It means half the number of players rounded down. And it's whoever started the scenario. So even if like 2 guys get KO'd, if you have 4 players, it would still be 2 cards. So that's not even terrible. Just 2 cards to do it. But again, that limits what cards are in your hand for doing other stuff. And it also puts aggro cards in your discard pile, which are going to trigger all these other effects. But do you do that, or do you take damage? Or do you let that round counter mark up too many times? Another red card. We have River Strength. Gains 1 struggle per player -1. Advance the round marker by 1 unless the active player has an aggro on top of their discard pile. So this one might be a little bit harder to get just to avoid. Again, you might be able to avoid it, but maybe not. Same thing, except 1 struggle per player. For our other green, we only have 2 of the greens, I think. We have Celestial Echo. Shimmering scales on Nagajas bodies shine like the ancient constellations in the sky. Boost 1, heals half the damage it currently sustains. Cool. Healing effect. That's all he needs, right? It's already making the game hard enough. Oh boy, that's even worse. Triggers all behavior cards in play at the red reaction. And then he also potentially heals. Not potentially, if he has boost, which he most likely does. Our yellow one, we're going to have Twisted Fate. If the top card of the active player discard pile is the same color as the reaction card on top of the behavior deck, remove 1 struggle, otherwise the active player suffers an attack. How do you plan for that? Normally I'd say it'd be easy. Oh, you look at the top card of the deck, you could maybe be like, I try and keep that same color, maybe prevent them just in case. But we have that quick refresh, which is constantly going to switch out cards every turn. There's no way to plan for that. It's all luck. Oh boy. And the harder version also gains the evasion, and you get +1 damage +1. Cool. His last 2 behavior cards are Disruptive Attack. Each player must recycle 2, so discard 2 cards and draw 2. The monster leaps forward with the violent momentum of a river in a flood, and just like the surface of the water, its iridescent tail reflects flashes of blinding light. I like this kind of this river dragon. That's really cool. And then other one, each player must recycle their entire hand. So again, breaks combos, or you're trying to keep some aggro cards in your hand for this. It's going to get rid of them. This is a really neat character. I really like him. A different way to play it. Advancing your round marker is an interesting strategy too, because then you're not playing with a damage limiting, or some of these guys are like, if this happens, you're KO'd. You're fighting against the clock. It's already advancing, but then it can skip even farther. So that means every time you do an attack, you almost have to make it even more worth it. Alright, so we are going to hop into the campaign stuff now. So, this is your spoiler warning for the campaign, reward cards, and bonus stuff that's unlocked during the campaign. So if you do not want to see this, I thank you for watching the video. Hope you guys should check out the other ones. You're enjoying these. If you're gonna you don't care about spoilers, let's hop into it. So the first thing we're gonna look at are the 2 new awakened cards. So the awakened boss gains instant behavior cards for every monster. You shuffle them up. So each new monster expansion has been adding more cards. So first off, we have River Strength. So he's going to use Nagajas' River Strength ability. It says, Awaken gains 1 struggle per player. The round marker advances by 1 unless the top of the active player's discard pile is a aggro card. Oh, I love the concept of these. The Awaken using other abilities. But sometimes these abilities are like out of nowhere. Like, oh, your character gains, like, loses this, or they freeze this, or this, like this. Like, he doesn't have anything normally that would let him advance the round marker. He doesn't need it. It's gonna hurt you really bad. So that's just, it's so abusive. I love it though. And other ones, if you're threatened, he has Feathered Crown. Active player suffers an attack unless they reveal 3 cards of the same color. Great. That's really fun. I love them. I love the idea of that. Be able to add their cards into his deck. Alright, then we're going to look at our quest cards. So we're going to start with quest number, not 29. We're going to start with quest number 25. Which is the first one here. So we have 2 potions. And I just realized, if you've been watching my videos in order, and you've made it this far, I've done the monsters expansions in the backwards order. I should have done them in the other order for quest rewards, but that's alright. You have 2 new potions, the Nether is. Consume, choose a color, reduce the stamina cost of any card of that color you play this round by 1. That's fun. If you have a bunch of cards of the same color, you need to play a bunch, you're going to get a bonus from them. Then our next 4 cards are all different quests, up through 26 through 29. But they're rings. We have Resolve, which is legendary, which means it counts for all elements. Reduces stamina cost of the first blue card you play by each turn. It's kind of neat. So the potion reduces any card of a color, but it's a potion, so you can only use it once. This does only the first card, but it's just for blue. We have Valor, which will reduce the green cards. We get Fury, which reduces the red cards, and we get Zeal, which reduces the yellow cards. So that's a really neat idea. Either a one-time effect for all of them, or only once for the first. And now you might be like, that's not super powerful though for being taking up my 1 item slot. Except it's also legendary, so you'll get the bonus for your elements as well. Alright, so that's what we have for the Feather expansion for Primal The Awakening. Again, hope you guys have enjoyed my videos. And if you haven't checked all of them out for some reason, go back, check out the previous ones. Up next, if you're following in order, we'll be doing the Hunter expansion. So we just do the brand new 2 Hunters. Then followed up last is we will do the Nightmare expansion box, which is kind of some Kickstarter stretch goal stuff. Hope to see you guys for those videos. See you guys later. Bye.